I know I'm really late to this. This deal between the Blues and the Leafs really caught me off guard. I did not expect to see a blockbuster that late on a Friday night, still a couple of weeks before the trade deadline. This is really the first time that I've actually had time to sit down and give you guys my thoughts on the trade, so I figured better late than never. I'm sure there's still a good amount of you who want to hear my take. So the full details of the trade: the Toronto Maple Leafs acquire St. Louis Blues captain Ryan O'Reilly. The Blues are retaining 50% of O'Reilly's cap hit. They also acquired Noel Acciari and prospect Josh Pilar from the Minnesota Wild. This was a 3-team deal. The St. Louis Blues acquired from the Leafs Mikhail Abramov, Adam Gaudette, Toronto's 2023 first, Ottawa's 2023 third, and Toronto's 2024 second. And the Minnesota Wild would receive Toronto's 2025 fourth round pick for retaining 25% of O'Reilly's cap hit on top of the 50% that St. Louis retained. This is a massive trade. Obviously, that third team, the Minnesota Wild in this case, had to be involved for the money to work for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Slightly confused as to why Minnesota gave up Josh Pilar in this deal, who went to the Maple Leafs. He was a 4th round pick by the Wild in 2021, so they traded away a prospect who was a 4th and then retained 25% of O'Reilly's cap hit and got another 4th. So kind of confused by what the Wild did here, but that's besides the point. No one wants to hear my thoughts on Josh Pilar and Minnesota being the third team involved. Let's talk about the Maple Leafs acquiring Ryan O'Reilly. This was Kyle Dubas absolutely taking a home run swing, and I like that he made an aggressive move like this, especially, a few weeks before the trade deadline, so they have even more time to work Ryan O'Reilly and Noel Acciari into things. I've been seeing a lot of mixed reactions to this trade on social media. A lot of people saying that the Leafs overpaid, and I definitely think it's a steep price: a first, a second, a third, and a 4th. And then, of course, Gaudette and Abramov, neither of which I think will really be all that big of a factor for the St. Louis Blues. Adam Gaudette, fringe NHLer, 26 years old, and Mikhail Abramov, 21-year-old, a former 4th rounder by the Leafs, is about a half point per game player in the AHL. Could be something there, could also not be. But the reality of this situation is, if the Maple Leafs get bounced in the first round this year, Kyle Dubas is likely gone anyways. There's absolutely no reason for him to care all that much about draft picks at this point. The Maple Leafs are in full win now mode, and sure, Ryan O'Reilly is having a down season offensively for his standards, like finishing wise and just point production wise, but analytically this is still one of the league's best two-way centermen. Fantastic in the face-off dot. This is a guy who captained the St. Louis Blues to the Stanley Cup in 2019, won the Conn Smythe in that playoff run as playoffs MVP. This is a proven playoff performer. He has 56 career points in 64 career playoff games. He is the highest career points per game in the playoffs now of any player on the Toronto Maple Leafs. Ryan O'Reilly is the kind of player who can move the needle for you. He's the kind of piece that I believe can put a team over the top. This isn't, the Nick Foligno trade that took place a couple of years ago. I know a lot of people were kind of comparing the two, but when Toronto acquired Nick Foligno and traded the first round pick to get him, he was at that point in his career pretty much just an all defense, bottom 6 forward. O'Reilly is a guy who I still feel like is more than capable of driving his own line. You look at the Maple Leafs depth down the middle now: Austin Matthews, John Tavares, Ryan O'Reilly, and David Kampf. That is absolutely insane. Have to imagine Ryan O'Reilly is going to get some easier matchups now in Toronto as well, with Austin Matthews and John Tavares in front of him. There has been some speculation that maybe O'Reilly could play on the wing in the top 6. I don't think they're going to start that way. I feel like they're only going to do that if they really want to load up a line, if they're struggling to finish in the playoffs or something like that. But ultimately, I think this is a huge get for the Maple Leafs. I like that Kyle Dubas made a trade of this magnitude to really go for it, really go all in. They have to win a playoff round this year, and O'Reilly is definitely a guy who can help them do that. Also, Noel Acciari, versatile bottom 6 forward, can kill penalties, a depth guy, but a decent addition for the Maple Leafs in this deal as well. So those are pretty much my entire thoughts on this deal from the Maple Leafs side of things. Ultimately, yes, it was a steep price to pay, but at least they didn't have to give up Matthew Knies. I know a lot of Leafs fans were worried about that, and if you were going to overpay for a rental, I think Ryan O'Reilly is almost the perfect guy to go and overpay for. Now, before we wrap up, let's quickly talk about this deal from the point of view of the St. Louis Blues. I know there's a lot of sad Blues fans out there. Obviously, there was a big emotional connection there with Ryan O'Reilly, captained the franchise to their first ever Stanley Cup, but with Ryan O'Reilly being a pending UFA, this is the kind of deal that you just could not turn down. Now you look at St. Louis's draft capital. They have 3 first-round picks in this year's draft, which is slated to be one of the deepest drafts in recent memory. I think it's really smart for St. Louis to embrace this. I won't even call it a rebuild, but retool, and I'll be honest, I wouldn't be surprised if we see the Blues add another first-round pick pick between now and the deadline. According to Elliot Friedman, there has been a ton of interest in Ivan Barbashev, so just imagine if they can get a first-round pick for him as well, and then they have 4 first-rounders in this upcoming draft. So overall, I think St. Louis Blues fans should be pretty happy with the package that they got in return, especially considering the fact that Ryan O'Reilly, points-wise, is having a little bit of a down year compared to his last few seasons in St. Louis. But we really shouldn't be surprised. A guy with the reputation that Ryan O'Reilly has, we should have figured that any Ryan O'Reilly trade would likely be a big one. So that is pretty much going to wrap up this video, giving you guys my thoughts on the blockbuster trade between the Blues and the Maple Leafs, and also the Minnesota Wild that took place late last night. As always, I want to know your guys' thoughts, especially if you're a Maple Leafs or a Blues fan. I'm sure you feel pretty passionately about this deal, so leave all your thoughts down below in the comments. If you guys enjoyed this video and you're excited for the trade deadline, please be sure to leave it a like. That is the best way to show your support. And most importantly, if this was your first time checking out the channel and you want more NHL content just like this, be sure to hit that subscribe button, and I will talk to you all soon.